was closing in on 5 PM down at the precinct, and I was finishing up the last of the paperwork for the day. A kidnapping case that ended in a horrific murder-suicide. The thought of that woman doing such unspeakable acts to that young boy still making me feel nauseous. As I signed the last page, ready to file it away, my partner walked in to grab her stuff.
Hey, Marty.
She teased. Don't call me Morty, Victoria. You know I hate it.
But you're such a Morty.
She walked behind me, wrapping her arms around my neck and resting her chin on my head.
Even your name says so.
My name was Christopher Anderson, and during my time as a detective, I had enjoyed being called Anderson by others. It wasn't until a Christmas party 3 years ago that Victoria had found out my middle name was Mortar. Add to the fact that despite my youth compared to others here, I always acted serious. And I had a pet name, as she called it.
Anderson, Saris,
barked our chief as he walked in, a couple of boxes in hand.
Do you have those reports done?
Yes, sir, I just finished them up, I replied, patting my hand on the front of the folder.
And where were you during all of this?
He said, dropping the boxes on Saris's desk.
I was down in the morgue, having the body identified.
She said, standing up straight.
Good. I have a new case right now, and I need the two of you to look into it.
He stated. Please, not another kidnapping. I doubt I can deal with that shit again.
No, this one is a bit more strange.
He stated.
Look, I know you both must be tired, but I need you to stay late.
Oh, come on.
Victoria argued.
Look, Saris, if it was up to me, I'd be sending you both on a vacation. 'Cause what that bitch did still sends shivers down my spine. This case is special, though. Do you remember that shooting spree we had last week?
I nod my head, remembering the huge media coverage about it. A man in his early 20s had gone to the middle of the city with an assault rifle and started mowing people down left, right, and center.
Well, what wasn't shown on the news was what happened after we cornered him. I need you two to try and figure this out as quickly as possible before it happens again.
Again? How can you be sure?
Victoria asked.
That's the second box. About 10 years ago, back when I was in your position, a similar case passed through my office. If there is a connection, I want you guys to find it.
I was stunned to think that this would go back so far, but I was brought back into reality as Victoria agreed. The chief nodded, leaving us a couple of $20 bills as a bonus to get some dinner delivered, before leaving us to our work.
Which one do you want to look at first?
Victoria asked, walking over to her side of the desk. Go with the recent one. We should get familiar with what we might be dealing with in the other one. Checking the dates on the label, Victoria pushed one box into the center and dropped the other one onto the floor. Lifting the lid, I grabbed the first file out of the box, opening it to see a profile of the shooter. Richard Vanguard, age 27, worked construction but used to be in the military. It might explain how he got his hands on such a powerful rifle. As I continued reading, I saw that he'd been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, something I might have to check out in the morning. The next thing I found was the crime scene photos. Every body in the pictures were torn to shreds, making it difficult to identify who was under the layer of red. Men, women, children, none of them were spared from this massacre. I could even pick up the specks of navy blue from the few police uniforms, making me swear under my breath. As I continued to pick through the photos, I came upon a new set that seemed more disturbing. The body in the picture hadn't been shot to death like the others. Rather, they were full limbs that looked like they were cut from the body at the torso joint. As I flicked through the photos, I finally came to the dismembered head to find it was the shooter, Vanguard's head. Do you have the report? I asked, not looking up from the photos. Hearing dead silence, I assumed Victoria had snuck out while I was not paying attention. I looked up to see she was still sitting across from me, file in hand, but the colour had drained from her face. I quickly sat up, rushing around to her side and pulled the file from her hands.
God, why?
She whispered. Victoria? I said, shaking her shoulder. She jumped and looked at me. How about you go get us some dinner and I'll keep going through this stuff?
Yeah, it sounds good. Chinese?
I nodded my head, helping her to her feet. As she walked out the door, I looked at the file to see what she was reading. It was the case report I was looking for. I slowly picked up and began reading. On the day of the shooting, the area was full of people going about their day to day, none paying attention to the others. No one noticed Vanguard walk into the centre of the busy square or pull out the rifle. As I turned the page, I could see why Victoria was pale. The report had a picture of a man and child's crime scene photo, the man's body covering the child's in a desperate attempt to protect them. I moved the picture back with the others before continuing on. The report stated there was surveillance tapes to go along with the story, so I began to rifle through the box, grabbing the CDs out and walking back to my computer. As I put the first CD in, a black and white video came up on my screen showing the square in question. From the people sitting down at the tables, it looked like it was a surveillance camera from a cafe, but it still gave a good view of where the shooting was supposed to happen. I fast forward to just before the time of the shooting to see where Vanguard came from. As I saw him walk in from the right, wearing a large trench coat and a backpack, I was startled by my phone ringing. I calmed my heart before picking up the handset. Hello, this is Detective Anderson.
Hello. My name is Dr. Eriks. I'm sorry for calling this late, but my assistant did not inform me of your call until I was almost at the door.
Call?
Oh yes, are you the detective in charge of the Vanguard case?
I went silent, my mind in shock.
Hello?
Huh? Oh, yes I am. How can I help you?
You see, I was Mr. Vanguard's therapist.
Back when he was treated for PTSD, I flicked through some of the notes as I spoke.
Yes, but recently he had some new concerns.
I stopped flicking through the pages and sat forward. New concerns?
Yes, he said that he'd been having nightmares more frequently. None of them he could remember. And more recently, he'd been hearing music that wasn't there.
More frequently? Was he having nightmares due to the PTSD as well?
Yes, but as I said, these ones he could not recall.
How recent are we talking here?
He came to me about his nightmares 3 months ago, and the song started to play in the last month. Do you think it might be connected to the case at all?
I can't say for certain. What about the PTSD?
Well, he returned from duty when he was, 22, which was around the same time he came to see me. It took a few years, but I helped him work through it, and he was able to return to a normal life.
And it was then the nightmares began?
No, there was a 2-year gap between our sessions. I was quite surprised when he requested to see me again.
I see. Well, thank you very much for the call, Dr. Eriks. If I have any more questions, I'll be in touch. I might have hung up on him a little too fast, but my mind was trying to piece together Vanguard's timeline. Out of the army at 22, then therapy until he was 25. But the question remains, what happened to him over the past 2 years that caused him to do this? I dropped my head to my desk, my mind too tired to think. A knock at my door woke me from my self-hate, and I looked up to see a man in his mid-30s wearing a simple white jumper and denim jeans. Can I help you? I asked. Sorry, I was sent up here. My name's Timothy Vanguard. My brother was... Yes, Mr. Vanguard, I know who your brother was. I sighed deeply. What can I do for you? I just wanted to find out what was taking so long with my brother's body. Please, take a seat. I was just going through his case file right now. Going through it? I thought it would have been open and shut for you cops. I could hear the venom in his words. We are checking through everything again, just in case. I flipped through the report until I found the coroner's page. The body was requested to stay due to muscle reattachment. I couldn't understand what the coroner meant. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Vanguard. Call me Tim. Tim, your brother's body was requested to stay by our coroner. He wanted to dot the I's and cross the T's, just in case we find something that proves your brother's innocence. You're damn right he is! Tim bellowed, jumping up from his seat. He looked at me with shock before calmly sitting down. I'm sorry about that. I've been under some stress lately. It's okay. Look, Tim, I'm going to try and move this as quickly as I can. It won't matter. He lost his rights to a military grave. Pardon? Ricky fought for this country just like I did and just like our father. When he was discharged, he was promised a place in a military cemetery when he passed away. The whole package, free service, proper headstone, everything covered. With him shooting up that place, they denied him. Bad press, you know. Oh, Tim, could you tell me about your brother? Like, how was he after he returned from the service? Richard joined the army just like I did. Dad was so proud of us at that point. But the war did something to him. He had some serious shell shock when he came back. He even went to see a shrink about it. He didn't speak until I returned from my second service, and then 2 years later he was back to almost normal. There were times he flinched at stuff, but I had my little brother back. In the past 6 months, did he ever speak to you about having nightmares or hearing things? Not really, he seemed okay. Is there any reason you can think of that Richard would do what he did? Absolutely not. After he came back, he despised guns. He freaked out when my son pointed a water pistol at him. He never picked up a firearm even after he felt better. Said he could still hear the civilians crying out. Okay, you're free to go. I passed him one of my business cards. Give me a call in a week or so. I'll try to have your brother's body ready. In the meantime, I'll try to talk to the army funeral people. I might be able to straighten this out. Do you think he did it? At this point in time, I don't think he did it in his right mind. I can't be sure, but it might be a mental strain or something. As I said, I'll try to sort it out. Thank you, Detective Anderson. I shook his hand and he quietly left, leaving me to my thoughts. My mind raced even faster as I processed the new information. What did the coroner mean by muscle reattachment? Why was muscle in need of being reattached? I looked at my computer screen, which had gone dark from no use. Shaking the mouse, the screen lit up to show a black and white view of a busy area. The crime scene. My eyes fell on Vanguard's frozen figure as he entered from the right. Hitting play, I grabbed my notepad and jotted down anything I thought was of importance. Vanguard slowly walked into the middle of the busy square, people just walking around him, not noticing him. I zoomed in a bit to see he had a blank expression on his face, like he felt nothing at that point. He reached into his jacket, pulling out the rifle, still no one paying attention. Flicking off the safety and loading the magazine, Vanguard brought the rifle up to his shoulder, ready to fire. My heart sank, knowing what was about to occur, but powerless to stop it. Bullets tore through the crowd of unsuspecting people, their bodies falling to the ground. People tried to flee in terror, but only to take shots in the back. I looked back to Vanguard, my eyes drawn to his movements. His body didn't seem to move like a normal person's would. Instead of flowing in a circle as he spun, every quarter turn, the left side of his body would drop slightly, like he lost all feeling to it. I rewound the tape backwards to check his movements as he walked in, as I didn't see him with a limp. As I watched his walk in with more detail, I noticed another strange pattern. His shoulders never went in front of his feet at any time. I jotted down these notes, hoping to find the cause for all this, before watching the shooting again. I noticed his mouth moving as he fired the gun, and I zoomed in on his face as best I could. Throughout the time he mowed down people, he was saying something to himself, though I could not tell what he was saying. Soon enough the police arrived, and Vanguard dropped his weapon. For the first time in the whole video, he smiled, looking at the police. I moved closer, hoping to catch something he might have said. I almost fell out of my seat when I witnessed something that I might never forget. Vanguard was raising both arms in the air when they were ripped out of their sockets and fell to the ground. Blood sprayed from his torn arteries, and a couple of police turned away in horror. Next, both his legs were ripped out sideways, flying in opposite directions. Still, the look on his face was one of content as he mumbled a few distant words. His torso fell to the ground, landing on its back. As the remaining cops approached, I witnessed something that sent a shiver down my spine. The torso lifted itself upwards until it sat upright, facing directly at the camera. It was like Vanguard knew I was going to be looking at him, and he stared into my stall. Blood drained from my face as he mouthed a couple more words to me. These ones I could understand. Before his head was torn upwards and off his body, a geyser of blood bathing the cops. I screamed as I heard the sound, only to realize it was my phone. I picked it up and answered it. Hello?
Morty, it's Vicky. I left my keys in my bag, and the door's shut. Can you come give me a hand?
Sure. I'll be right out. Hanging up the phone, I grabbed my mouse. Closing the video, I quickly snatched up my pen, writing down the last of my notes before running to help Victoria.